So this morning I'm talking to you as a professor from Ryerson University. I also work with IDC, International Data Corporation. I'm an adjunct there, but my full-time job is a professor. And speaking as a professor at Ryerson, I've got a little bit more latitude about the things that I can say. And I'll offend nobody, but I will be drawing from a broad set of research that I have done and that others have done to make a few points. A couple of quick housekeeping, I guess. The very last slide will have my email on it. If you want these slides, send me an email. I'll send you the slides, and that'll be fine. I'm going to talk about two case examples this morning as well. I don't have any specific slides. In fact, still working on that. One of them is going to be Alberta Treasury Branch, and where's the gentleman from ATB? Thank you. Okay, you'll keep me honest, but ATB is the Bank of Alberta, and I'll tell you more about that, but they've implemented some cool robotic processing, and there's more to come. The second one will be an anonymous call center. So call centers are a great opportunity for automation and messy places, so to speak, with lots of integration challenges. So I'll talk a little bit about that. Let's see, what other opening points do I have? The agenda, I'm going to give you an overview of robotic process automation, RPA for short, talk about the benefits and where to apply it and the challenges. But most importantly, I'm going to talk about the impact on people within your organization who are your employees, the impact on the organization itself. How does it change the distribution of work, the type of work, the structure of work, the organization itself? And then lastly, and this is my passion, the impact on society. How does it affect us? And we're all mature here, but we've all got children or we know young people, and I teach them all the time. What's their world going to be like, their employment, their jobs, 20, 30 years down the road? For most of us in IT, what we do today didn't exist 30 years ago or 40 years ago. I'm a computer science guy, and I've been in the business for 4 decades, but boy, I think back to what I learned and how it prepared me. Not quite, but one theme for sure will be the ongoing education and re-education, perpetual education and knowledge acquisition, which is part of the reason why you're here today. Last quick comment, some of my background is in, a lot of my background is in outsourcing of IT, and that's been a topic and a theme for me for about 20 years. And so a couple of things I'm going to say will apply to the outsourcing industry, and I can go long and deep, but that's not the purpose of this presentation. Okay, so let's get into it. By the way, I have to test this. Do you know how long it takes a laser to penetrate the skull of a student? I don't know either, but it certainly wakes them up. It gets their attention. So, because you never know, right? And they are, students, especially at 8:30, don't tend to listen well. And I compete with iPhones and iPads and everything else that's in their pockets, so to speak. First, some definitions, and I draw on this from KPMG. I used to work at KPMG, and I respect them. They've coined the word digital labor. And digital labor they talk about as being something that, robotics, but I'll hit the first topic, basic robotic process automation. And a good phrase they use is swivel chair. And perhaps RPA exists because of the plethora of legacy, poorly structured, disconnected systems that we have. You bought an ERP, you bought a CRM, you've got a bespoke or a custom-built COBOL system or something. And the need to bridge between those, which is so evident from a customer service perspective. Go to a bank, call up the airline, talk to your telecom provider, or your cable provider, whatever, and they're constantly pulling from different sources to provide a cohesive, a comprehensive answer to you, and sometimes it's damn near impossible. But when you start to look at the consistency of the workflow, screen scraping, looking at what is looked at in process mapping, it becomes very consistent, and the basic RPA is automating that process. It's not rocket science, but I am surprised at how consistent and how quickly the market is growing in this respect. Organizations are saying, wow, if I can do this, I need fewer people, and that'll become a theme. Outsourcing again, BPO business that's gone offshore to India, Philippines, other low labor cost areas of the world is premised on the fact that we have these pretty simple tasks that take a lot of human activity, and it's better to do it cheaply someplace else. RPA is creating the opportunity to displace BPO in some cases, and in fact bring some of that labor back onshore, North America, Europe, that sort of thing. Okay, the second level, like KPMG calls it enhanced process automation. And what this is going to end up to, I might as well get there, will be the artificial intelligence on the far right-hand side. So think of RPA as sort of the basic workflow automation, process mapping, et cetera. And the far right-hand side, using natural language processing, a knowledge base, the ability to learn and to be taught and to build on the experience. And we had Kevin yesterday talking about a little bit how Microsoft is embedding AI into PowerPoint, which fascinates me, or Word. I mean, if I can write an essay without even thinking, that would be great, because it'll be written for me, or my PowerPoint slides will be drawn for me. But the far right is hard and expensive. So the idea that artificial intelligence can do diagnostics of cancer imagery takes a long time and a significant investment. Watson didn't beat Jeopardy overnight. It took a lot of investment on IBM's part. But once you've got that capability going and you've focused it on a particular problem or industry, cancer diagnostic, winning at Jeopardy, you can build on that quite readily. And again, I think some of the industries that will see artificial intelligence being applied will be in banking and financial services, because the customer interface and pulling together all of that information. First of all, there's a tremendous effort involved. Second, there's a great return. And third, the banks have the capital and the investment capable of doing that. The last one will be the government. And there's everything in between. In fact, yesterday, for those of you who watch CBC in the break between 6 and 7, there was an announcement about an AI-based brokerage, or an AI-based portfolio selection that is basically saying, look, we're going to alter your portfolio based on what we know about you and based on what we see that's going on in the market. You'll pay the robot, so to speak, and that thing will monitor and manage your portfolio on a daily basis. So fascinating. So 3 different levels. Far right distinguished by the ability to learn, natural language, NLP processing, recognition, self-optimization, the ability to predict what's happening in the market, and the ability to generate hypotheses and then build on those hypotheses. Far left, RPA, the growth is on the far left, the potential is on the far right. And the far right is where people get a little bit scared about what's going to happen to our industry. So I'll go a little bit deeper now in robotic process automation. And at the risk of boring you, I have to ask a question. Who's doing RPA in your organization or your community? So 1, 2, okay. That fits. Lots of people talking or thinking. I'm speaking about it here now. For those of you who are tentative, this will come in the final slides, it's worth investigating. It's worth investigating because of the power, the economics, and your competition is doing it. So if you're not doing it and the folks in your industry are getting ahead because they are, you're starting to fall behind, and I'll talk about that. Okay, RPA, regular business users, you teach how it's going to work, and it fundamentally leverages or bridges the gap between legacy and even the systems that we installed 10 and 15 years ago for Y2K, more than that, I guess. And usually the difficulty is that we have so much complexity, and again, I'm part of this, where it's difficult or impossible, terribly expensive for sure, to bridge between the various legacy systems. And we're able to automate it so it's done 7x24 by bots that don't complain, they don't show up late, they're not groggy. It might be a little bit more expensive, but you can whip them into great work modes, and they don't complain. The key to this last line here is when it's done well, it allows us, the human part of the workforce, to focus on things that are more value-added, the interpretive, the cognitive, the emotive. And I often say, we're going to be the winners on the EQ scale, but the robots are going to win on the IQ scale. Sure, we're all smart, but it's difficult, although it's coming, to mimic or automate empathy, understanding, communication. Those of you who are in sales and marketing, you've got a job for life. RPA provides an additional layer of software. It interacts according to predefined rules and algorithms. The dark side of RPA is that it does exactly what you told it to do all the time. And if you teach it wrong or there's a quirk, it will do that so fast, so automated, it can cause all sorts of problems. Now, just a footnote here, I did this research with Evan Hughes, a graduate student at Ryerson, so I often work with students. A footnote as well, if, coming out of this discussion, again, I'm a Ryerson professor, I'm in Toronto, I'm always looking for opportunities to explore, what's your organization doing? What can we learn from that example that we can, provide to a broader audience, named or unnamed, because it's knowledge, I think, that helps the entire industry and our society move ahead. You use RPA because you've got labor challenges. You haven't got enough people, or you're paying them too much, or they're unreliable, and they're just damn bored with the routine tasks. Again, I think KPMG calls it a swivel chair tasks. Cut, paste, insert, interpret, repeat. You need a higher level of accuracy and consistency in the processes, and there are multiple systems. Some of them legacy, some of them some of them from vendors, legacy and bespoke. But the processes must be standardized, they must be rule-based, and they must involve several interoperable systems. However, if you find this situation, and again, this is not the sort of thing that people say, yeah, we're really old, we're really complex, and we're really disconnected, but everybody is. If you've been in business for more than 20 years, you are. And if you've been in business for 100 or 200 years, the banks, the governments, some of the major utilities, of course you are. The value of RPA is tremendous. The payback is double-digit percentage-wise. The market is growing. There are significant vendors out there. That's why I say it's worth exploring. 6 characteristics that will give you a positive return. I've spoken about some of these. Clear and simple rules, multiple platforms, limited need for human judgment. What the RPA does is it says, okay, I've done what you've normally told me to do to process this claim, an expense claim, process this insurance claim, for example, and I found something that doesn't fit the rules. So it spits it out and says, okay, human, Mr. Underwriter, Mr. Expense Claim Processor, please figure this out and tell me what to do. Maybe it's a new rule that we haven't figured out yet. We're going to have to embed that in the RPA, or it's once in a million time. We don't have to worry about it. But help me with it. Low number of exceptions to the rule, high transaction volumes, and here's the key. If you're going to do RPA, look for a year or two, because it'll take time to figure out, take time to get it up and running. A year or two, and you'll get the payback. If you're going to do it for 6 months, it won't work. One area that, one case study in the UK, was a telecom company, it was O2, I think, said, we have these surges when a new technology like an iPhone 10, an iPhone X, iPhone 10, is introduced. And we get a huge volume of customers that are coming in, they're replacing. We basically have to swap the SIM or the code that was on the old cell phone or smartphone to the SIM that's going to be on the new cell phone. And it happens once every, 2-3 years or so? But we've got the Samsungs, we've got other ones that are coming. So we have these peaks that are unpredictable. That's where we use the robots. That's where we use the RPA. If it's just steady state, we wouldn't need them. But when we've got high volumes that are a little bit unpredictable, but we know they're going to occur, that's the time to use it. Okay, that was too much text. The next one is from some research done by Alison Close, IDC, a colleague down in Framingham. And not a surprise, but cost reduction is of the utmost importance. So we implement RPA. 58% of the respondents, and I think there were 402 respondents, said, we want to get our costs down. Human costs, costs of process, costs of fixing errors, but we also want to address the productivity, the employee productivity. I get more out of the robots, and I get better quality, right? I have fewer errors to fix. Errors are costly, you got to fix them, but it also presents a poor image to your customer. I'm kind of accustomed, I'm dealing with one of the big banks in Toronto right now, and I'm being abused. I'm not being abused, but I'm being, not that way, but I'm getting terrible service from one of the banks at downtown Toronto. And I'm thinking, why are they doing this? They're having difficulty bringing together information from my portfolio to understand what the investment should be. I understand what the problem is. I think I know why they've got that problem. But for me as a customer, I'm saying, wow, I'm just pissed. I'm angry at this bank. I won't say on a public stage who they are. But if you can improve the quality, let's see if I can get my pointer here, reducing or eliminating human error, first, it lowers your cost. Second, most importantly, it improves the customer experience and the customer reflection on your brand. Current processes that are suitable for automation. So, the chart on the left gives you the distribution, but it's the 37% of businesses, so approximately more than 1/3. So in this audience, we had maybe 10% put up their hand. That's low. I'm not saying maybe some of you are already doing it, but it's closer to 30 to 40% of the population that are saying, yeah, I can use this software, this RPA technology, to begin to bridge between my systems and get the improvements. So that, I found, was interesting. It was 2016. Certainly, it has grown, and I'll come to that now. Here's my, where it starts to get interesting, a survey that Professor Mary Lassity, great woman who focuses on this topic and outsourcing, she's at MIT now. We were at an outsourcing conference, and we asked 63 clients, the vendors did not participate in this part, and we said, let's talk about robotic process automation, RPA, cognitive automation, and then blockchain. And the first numbers, 35 and 37% there. The blue is RPA, but we're actively considering it, or we've already deployed it. 37% of the audience said, yeah, we're working with this right now. US fundamentally audience, but international. It's the International Association of Outsourcing Professionals. What's interesting, and this is not to debate with Lars, but blockchain, BC, people are either unaware or aware and doing nothing, interested, but not many, what is that, 8% are actively deploying blockchain. So, and I want to do this contrast. RPA, pretty basic, quite frankly, but it's useful, demonstrated, valuable, it works. The money is there, 12 or 18 months. Blockchain has great potential, as does artificial intelligence, but it's far more complex, it's further off into the distance, and there's a lot of things that need to happen between now and when we get there. So, and then cognitive automation is a little bit in between, or a little bit on the artificial intelligence side. So those that are already using it is 15%, or they're in a proof of concept or trial is about 25%. But RPA, and I think those are the words that we put together here. The same survey was done in 2016, repeated again in 2017. We're seeing that RPA is by far the one that has the greatest uptake. So very current, February of this year, I think we published it in February. The survey was done in February as well. And where the organizations are doing the work, 23% are doing it themselves, but 32%, a third again, are saying, let's get our provider, let's get Tata, Wipro, IBM, Accenture, et cetera, to help us do this. Because outsourcing, the service organizations, the outsourcers, this is fundamental to their business. If they're going to be in the BPO business, most of them are, they must be able to automate, and it's not going to be low-cost labor. So there's an undertone here that says, and the Indian NASSCOM and those that do outsourcing in India are thinking, wow, if we don't automate, we're not going to have the competitive advantage that we used to have, and that low-cost labor capability that has been our fundamental economic driver for the last 20 or 30 years is going to just not disappear, but it's going to be dampened and diminished. So it's having an impact on the outsourcing industry. Now, one more survey. This was done in March, April of this year. Very Canadian-centric, and it was done with ITWG, IT World Canada. They do a survey of CIOs. Maybe some of you participated in it. We broke out the Canada versus Quebec. The Quebec survey was en français. What became very evident is that, not a surprise, big data analytics and digital transformation are head and shoulders above all the other issues. And this, we had a few questions, but this one was maybe, what's going to happen in the next 5 years that will have a significant impact on your business? Data analytics, and we had 60 questions, and many of the questions yielded the same result. The hiring, the biggest hiring will be data analytics and big data and digital transformation skills. Artificial intelligence, and this was a surprise to me, again, is quite low. Blockchain is even lower, but they see we see it coming. We know it's going to affect our business, but in the next 5 years, 3-4% say it's going to be a big thing, so it may be even further out. Nobody can predict 5 years. But as CIOs who are investing money today to improve their business, they'll put it into big data analytics and digital transformation, and less so into artificial intelligence. So that, for me, that was very current, very reflective of what we're doing. So, how am I doing for time? Whew. I usually do this, and it's all in the notes, so you can read it for the exam. What is the impact on the people that we employ? What is the impact on your organization? What must you do to change and get advantage of these technologies? And finally, I just do this because I think about these things. What will happen to our society? And I must say, on that last one again, on CBC last night, Elon Musk, this guy Tesla, is saying, it's going to ruin society. It's bigger than anything we've ever seen before. The robots are going to take over. That's fear mongering from a person perhaps who should not be doing that. Well, so let's do this. Here is the impact on our employees. You either redeploy them, by and large, that is what is being done. We bring in this automation so we can free up our smart people to do better things rather than doing cut and paste and trying to figure out how to work old legacy systems. Or we reduce the workforce, and this is Elon Musk's scare tactics. It happens, but it is less prevalent than it's less prevalent now than what others would have us believe. Let's do the first one. Half the organizations that we surveyed, and again, this is from the research we did in February of this year, Mary Lassity, half of the organizations simply redeploy the workers. We've got work that's not being done, or we've got work that's being done poorly, so let's get our smart people, let's get our human beings doing that stuff and robots doing the less demanding stuff. Perhaps we'll redeploy them. A third of the organizations will redeploy them within the organization, someplace else in the bank. A quarter of them take on different work or more work with the same employees. So redeploy the workforce. And now I'm going to bring in the case example from Alberta Treasury Branch, ATB in Alberta. It's a regional bank. It's not Canada's largest bank by far, but it might be one of Canada's more innovative banks, similar to Caisse de dépôt or the credit unions, et cetera, in Quebec and elsewhere in Canada. Introduced Poppy is her name. Pardon me? Pepper is her name, right? Poppy is the one in the UK. And this is a robot that's actually in the branches. Footnote, banks have been at the forefront of automation for decades. And there's a wonderful quote. I've seen it a couple of times, so I'm not quite sure who made the original quote. Brian Porter was the most recent one, who is CEO of Scotiabank. He said, we've deployed ATMs, everybody's got them, and we are more efficient in ATMs than anything else. The cost of a transaction at an ATM is the lowest, maybe online lower. We had 20,000 employees when the ATMs came out in the 1970s. We have 20,000 or more employees today doing better work, and we're doing more transactions. The point is, automation changes the way that transactions are being done, but we don't reduce the workforce. We get them to do more valuable, more interesting work. So the workforce in banks has gone up. ATMs have gone up. And the thought was in the 1970s, what are we going to do with all these tellers? They're going to be unemployed. Well, maybe some of them retire. There's no doubt about that. But the bank has more employees now than it has ever had, conducting more valuable transactions than the ATMs do the simple stuff. Now, the second one, I should come back to ATB. ATB deployed a robot. It's a physical robot, but it has face and voice recognition. So when you go into a branch, it starts to look at you, as Kevin demonstrated with his security log on a Microsoft device yesterday. It listens to your voice, it can interpret your language, and it can begin to answer your questions. Or if it's too complicated, we have a customer service representative at wicket number 3 who'd be happy to work with you. So introduced in May, I think, And this is where the top lines are going to become important. Skills and attitude in a growing business as opposed to inappropriate skills or attitude. At a CIO conference in Edmonton in April, the CEO of ATB announced this and was quite proud about it. And this is the CEO of the bank saying, we will have employees that are displaced, there's no doubt. We are keenly aware of our commitment and their desire to stay working at ATB. And we will do everything in our power to retrain, redeploy, give them the skills, et cetera, if they have the right attitude. The right attitude. If they don't have the right attitude, I kid you not, this is a quote, we'll send them over to the Royal Bank of Canada immediately. I didn't say that. So that's why I put that line up there, that sometimes the workforce will be reduced. It's questionable about skills. Again, the banking example, there's more work to do. And if people are willing to learn and willing to change and they have the right attitude, or quite frankly, the organization is not in a cost reduction mode. And sometimes you're in trouble and you're implementing this to reduce costs so you can stay alive. 1 in 5 organizations will hire fewer workers and will encourage attrition. Go someplace else. 1 in 8, so small number, but it happens, will lay off employees and encourage retirement. So these are the 5 sort of impacts that come about that as you implement or consider implementing, you'll have to figure out, what are we going to do? Hopefully, or often, it's in that we've got more work to do, we can give better service to our customers, we've got smart employees, let's invest, let's give them the opportunity to learn and retrain, and we'll redeploy them on better situations. This is the same data, but it's presented in a graphical format. And again, we repeatedly found that service automation techniques were used to free up employees from dreary, repetitive work so the employees can focus on more value-added tasks. I'm running out of time. So, okay, this will be real quick. Again, the notes are available, but here is the historic and academic perspective. What we're seeing now is the automation revolution or automation transformation. But historically, this is not the first. It was the steam engine, it was the electric motor, it was the internal combustion engine, it was software and computers. There was a huge study done in the 1960s by Lyndon Johnson's administration that says, computers are going to ruin the workforce. What are we going to do about this? So there's a sense of deja vu as, and let me get some of the quotes up there. The most telling one is number 4 at the bottom from Fry and Osborne at Oxford University, 2013. And there was a quote in the paper, one line that said, and it's a huge number, it's something like 70% of the US or the US and Europe population could be displaced. The press caught that and said, oh wow, everybody's going to be out of work in 5 or 10 years because of automation and robots. Ain't going to happen. Is my view. And others are balancing that. So, look, we've seen this time and time again. Chief economist at Deloitte. Last 2 centuries we've seen this problems. This is a great paper. David O'Toole is saying, look, let's examine what has happened and what is happening based on data as opposed to stories. And I'm going to go into David O'Toole's paper. So here is pay attention to this slide. This is the one slide, or this is a key thought, which will be on the exam. But this is what the data is showing us as we're labor and economists and professors, sort of demonstrate our value. Manually intensive, low-income jobs are growing. Personal care, health care, food service, cleaning service, protection services are growing. There are more nurses today than we have ever had. There are more food service employees, unfortunately, than we have ever had before. No doubt about that. Routine, intensive, medium income, operators, laborers, production, office administration, secretaries, typists, don't exist anymore. Little story, personal story. My mother-in-law was a telephone operator. She started in the 1950s, she retired in the 1990s. In 1900, there were 0, or pretty close to 0, telephone operators. In 2000, there were 0 telephone operators. It peaked in the 50s and 60s, and then it died. Jobs come, jobs go. And that's the nature of our economy. They might come and go a little bit faster now, which means that if you're a young person, you're going to have to learn a few things as you go through life. Okay, cognitive, intensive, high-income jobs. This is us. Our jobs didn't exist 50 years ago, for sure. Sales, perhaps has always existed, but technicians, professionals, managers. And there's this parabola that says, you know, this, and it's not NAFTA, and it's not governments, is why the middle class is disappearing. Jobs are going to the left, jobs are going to the right. And it's technology, this is my hypothesis, but others as well, that say technology is pushing us into two solitudes. So you either end up with high value, high intensity, cognitive intense jobs, or the other end of the extreme. More data to come. How am I doing for time? Yeah, okay, I'm going to skip over this slide because I want to come back to this. Some good examples. Nursing assistants have grown by 900% in the last 25 years. Home care workers by 168% in the last 25 years. Conversely, secretaries have declined by 52%. I'm surprised that some still exist. I said to people, I don't have an executive assistant. I am my executive assistant. I use Microsoft. Metal workers. I used to work at Stelco. Stelco doesn't exist anymore. You know, people that pounded out steel are employed. Typists. I'm surprised it's only 57%. But look at this. IT managers, again, I think that's us, or you know, people in our world, 195%. Financial managers, 132. Not that we need them, but management consultants, I used to be one, so I can joke about it, 356%. And they're well paid. This is the McKinseys, the KPMGs, the Deloitte Touche, or Deloitte's, et cetera, on the far right-hand side. But we're seeing a decline in the middle, and that's, from a personal perspective, that's where you don't want to be. That's where you don't want to send, you know, your children or our students, because that's, you know, that's the area that's being decimated. This is a great article from Harvard Business Review, Tom Davenport and Julia Kirby. He says, look, this is happening. What we need to do as individuals, as societies, as employers, is look for the opportunity, and that was the data I provided earlier, to augment. So the machine is helping. You're racing with the machine, not against the machine, not to replace the jobs. So collaborate, and they have 5, I think these are pretty good. Step up, look for things that machines can do. Again, customer service representative, where you're simply drawing data from different parts, different systems, and putting it together into a cohesive whole, while our role is to focus on higher order concerns. This is going to be a theme. It's a little bit self-serving, but I can't avoid this. Education will always be important, whether it's internal, whether it's self-driven, or it's formal, external, university, college, it doesn't matter. But I speak to graduates. When you graduate, your knowledge is good for a while, and then it decays. All employees, all people that wish to be employed, will always require ongoing education for the rest of their lives. Step aside. This is the point to the sales and marketing people. Inter and intrapersonal knowledge will never, it's difficult to see how machines will be able to displace that. So knowing how to work well with other people, team building skills, communication, trust, knowledge exchange, things that we intuitively know, and there's the word, are difficult for a machine to understand and to intuit. So look at what's becoming, what is being automated, and become an expert in a particular area. This one actually says it quite wide, and I say this to students, become really deep, a mile deep on something that's very narrow and very specific. Being able to diagnose tumors in cancer, imagery, and being the best in the world or the best in your profession at doing something like that, or being an expert in robotic process automation. And the last thing, of course, is work in this field yourself. So there are different strategies for individuals and for employees to take on. I've just got a few more minutes then, and organizational issues. In at least Ontario, but Ontario is not the only jurisdiction. What the politicians are finding, and society is saying, is that, look, if we're going to have manual intensive low income, food service, cleaning service, home care service, we must establish a minimum wage. And it's going to be $15 in Ontario. and I'm sure it'll be similar in other places. And this might trigger the need for unionization. Unionization is not a bad thing, but it can be disruptive and tumultuous when it happens. As I've just finished saying, I think retraining and redeploying is the mechanism for dealing with, or the common mechanism for dealing with those that are displaced. I should say severance and outsourcing are blunt instruments, and when they're done poorly, they will come back to haunt you. On the far right, the most interesting thing for us, I think in this room, is talent will go where talent will go. When I was at Accenture, we often said, we're in a global war for talent. I use the word competition here. But attracting and retaining the brightest and the best is your secret to success in the future at Microsoft, at IBM, at Accenture in those days, KPMG, et cetera. And if you're not able to do that, and this starts with, I think again, somebody was, Kevin yesterday said, Microsoft is able to attract the top 5% anywhere in the world. Doesn't matter which university, they will get the top 5%. And then we are happy to work with Microsoft because we know that they've got the top 5%. They've got the bright people. Same as it's true at Google and other places. But we're all in competition, whether you're a bank or Microsoft, for global talent. Societal issues, and this may be the last slide where it gets, I think, most interesting. There is a huge discussion in academics and politicians, et cetera, about a guaranteed, basic income guaranteed, BIG. It's frightening, but the idea that you would always pay every individual a certain amount of money, regardless. And it will help. Minimum wage says the same thing, but it brings up all sorts of disruption in this low end. The gig economy, where nobody has a job forever, everything is on contract, and you're constantly managing the precariat, as we call them in academia. Protection of vulnerable groups. If you've worked much around in Canada, we've got 3 or 4 big cities, but small cities throughout North America often rely on one industry. Detroit's a good example. I worked in the paper industry. When a mill closes down in Grand Falls or Iroquois Falls, that town closes down, that city closes down. People don't move so quickly, especially the older people who own their homes. But vulnerable groups, Aboriginal communities, et cetera, can be dramatically impacted. Another topic for another day, there is a significant discussion around, okay, if this work is going over here, how do we source it in such a way that it has an impact on those communities that are being disadvantaged? It's called impact sourcing. The Rockefeller Foundation is doing a fair bit of research there. It's another topic. For us, it's the labor mobility. Where do we go when, the ability to move between cities and between countries, and NAFTA will damage this tremendously, or the lack of NAFTA will damage this, is fundamental to our businesses and our personal well-being. I've mentioned post-secondary education, the capacity, and again, where the education is going. I've got a few people in post-secondary, the university sector here. Our traditional model is 19-year-old students come in, they sit down for 3 or 4 years, we give them a degree, end of story. That's gone, or that's going, because there aren't enough 19-year-olds. We must in the future make it online, available at their time. They'll certainly be in class for the 19-year-olds, but for those of us who are working, night classes, evening classes, online classes, structured so that you can transfer credits and still get recognition for the learning that you have done. You don't have to go and sit in a classroom and take 2 years out of your job to get a degree. And the last one is so near to my heart. Where's Amazon going to go? H2, is it called? So will it go to Boston? Will Amazon go to Boston? Maybe. Will it go to Toronto? Will it go to Calgary where they kill bears or something? But anybody from Calgary? Did I insult anybody? Oh, sorry. Okay. The Flames. You've got the Flames. Okay. Anyways, Amazon. Governments are throwing money or killing bears. They're throwing money at one of the world's richest organizations. It kind of doesn't make sense. We've got more challenging problems on the left-hand side. But we'll see more of this as time goes on. Cisco was very nice to Toronto. They located a regional center, a development center in Toronto. We're happy about that. Last slide now. And this is my advice to you, and I'm out of time. You cannot ignore what's going on in your industry. It affects automation, robotic process automation, cognitive automation, blockchain. will affect different industries in different ways. Blockchain for sure in the financial services, which is why it's a hot topic in banks and in any country. Do not ignore this. You can choose not to lead. That's fine. Don't be, ATB chose to lead with the robotics. I haven't mentioned the call center. They are choosing to lead with the integration of chatbots and artificial intelligence. And for the call center, the key is at some point, sometimes a human being is necessary. And knowing when to automate it, the balance between automating it and switching to a human being. Demographics drive this as well. Young people are happy with chatbots and talking to Siri or something. I am less comfortable doing that, but you must know what's going on in your industry. A whole other discussion is Clayton Christensen's Disruptive Innovation and Disruptive Digital Innovation. This was on the final exam a few years ago. Who killed Blockbuster? Like it was Colonel Mustard or something. It was Netflix killed Blockbuster. Why? How? Who killed Kodak? Was it the iPhone? Did Kodak kill Sam, the record, or did the iPhone kill Sam, the record man? But disruptive digital innovation, if you don't know about it, is low-end, less reliable, really low-cost technology that kind of creeps in, and one day it eats your cake. It takes your market. It disrupts your business. And automation, robotic automation, and I can bet all the brokers and the wealth management people are now looking at the announcement yesterday that says a robot is going to manage my client's portfolio. Am I obsolete? Will I be obsolete as a professor a few years from now? I don't know. A proof of concept. So work on ideas. Take some of this material, read some of the papers. Where can I experiment to see if this concept is going to be useful to me or not? Small, safe, and work with your vendors. You'll never exceed the capacity of the IBMs and the Microsofts. They have the wherewithal, and the innovative vendors as well that are a little bit smaller and new. They live on this stuff, and those of us who are in organizations that don't do this as our core competence, we have no choice. And the last one is, this is the last point, be prepared for workforce disruption. People will be unemployed, people will have to change their jobs, it'll affect us and our children, our families, et cetera. Don't ignore it, don't hide away from it, be proactive in some of the suggestions there. That's, if you want the slides, just email, I'll send them to you. I'm in Toronto at where the Leafs are going to win the cup, but that's another story. Well, I didn't say win, but I'm at Yonge and Dundas at the Eaton Centre. Our school is actually right there. We're going to be launching, this is 5 seconds, we're going to be launching a master's certificate diploma on this topic in September if you're interested. It's designed for people who would be CIOs. So this is some of the material. And Phil, I think I'm out of time. Do you want to ask a question? Does anybody have a question or a challenge? You can challenge this.
I have one.
Yeah, okay. And then, yeah.
Okay. Well, this
Sure.
is more important.
I'm pretty loud. I just wonder if you could tell us a little bit about the impacts on healthcare, where this is emerging in healthcare.
So I won't go back to the slides, but again, the two sides are really, really clear. So and I said this yesterday, hospitals are intensive and expensive, but they do really, really good work. And I think that's where the healthcare is going. Focus the limited resources, money and knowledge, skills, on the artificial intelligence and the technology to fix people and save people in a capital-intense, knowledge-intense environment. Doctors and robots. And again, Kevin had such a great example yesterday, the cancer diagnostic. On the left-hand side, we will have more people that are in services, the home health care, I think, for sure. And the middle ground of the general practitioner, I just don't know. I almost see the individual doctor diminishing in his or her capacity and role. I don't know. I'm not an expert in that area. But just the data that I showed up here, more intense, knowledge-based, AI-assisted, but not delivered, medical resources in health centers, hospitals, and more of that hands-on, at-home service. Hopefully not the lowest paid, because I want to make sure that whoever is giving me my meds when I'm 96 is got a good living and they can enjoy. That's where I see it going.
What I notice in healthcare is we've implemented a new EMR, hospital information system, fully automated. So unit secretary on the unit There's no need for them to do transcription of the orders from the physician. The physicians are doing them. So we're transferring the work. The physicians are not doing it online. So the unit secretaries are affected by these process. Transcriptionists, no longer we have reduced by almost 80+%. So the more you automate, it does affect some of the people that were doing these tasks that no longer are needed. So it's all automated. So I see some of that. And on the medication side, I mean, everything is automated. We have robotics that package these pills and all of that. So the pharmacist's role and the pharmacist technician
Changed
are
dramatically.
changing.
Yeah.
So these are some of the impact that we're starting to see in our organization.
Thank you.
Phil?
Yes. Final,
Go Leafs, go. That was my last comment. Okay.
final.
One quick one. You talked about at the beginning the robot that's going to get paid to manage our investments.
Yeah.
What will it do with the money?
Excellent point. Probably reinvest it. And maybe that's Elon Musk's point, is that, so anybody that uses Gmail, I use Gmail on my iPhone all the time. And just recently I noticed, maybe it's been there for a while, I haven't noticed, I'll send a message to somebody and they'll send a message back, and Gmail will offer me 3 responses. Yes, of course, thanks, but no, or maybe, or something like that. And all I have to do is pick one and send it back. And they're pretty good. Somebody wants to go to a restaurant and says, yeah, I'm hungry. Okay, I'll press that one. So what if my Gmail starts talking to your Gmail? And all of a sudden, it tells me I'm going to the restaurant at 12 o'clock. So I don't know. Folks, thanks very much. I've enjoyed talking with you.